So when I say your borough, you're gonna say ceasefire now. Sound good?
Yes!
Brooklyn says
Ceasefire now!
Queens says
Ceasefire now!
The Bronx says
Ceasefire now!
Manhattan says
Ceasefire now!
Staten Island says
Ceasefire now!
Love that. Okay, got it. And then the last chant we're closing out with is one that everybody knows if you own a television or have seen one at some point. Free, free, free Palestine!
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 Awesome, y'all. Let's take it from the top. What do we want?
Ceasefire!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Ceasefire!
When do we want it?
Now!
New York City for?
Ceasefire now!
New York City for?
Ceasefire now!
Brooklyn says?
Ceasefire now!
Queens says?
Ceasefire now!
Bronx says?
Ceasefire now!
Manhattan says?
Ceasefire now!
Staten Island says?
Ceasefire now!
Free, free, free Palestine!
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 Thank you all. We're going to go ahead and begin our press conference with our opening.
I'm going to attempt to use this microphone. And first of all, from the bottom of my heart, and in the name of all good things, of all of the people of this world, thank you so much for coming out this morning. I'm going to read verbatim because this message is very important. And I am speaking on behalf of the New York City for Ceasefire coalition that has been built to bring justice and peace in this world, to make sure that our city is on the right side of history. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jawanta Williams, and I'm the Managing Director of Vocal New York, and a proud member of the Coalition of New York City for Ceasefire. We have gathered here today to show citywide support for an immediate and permanent ceasefire and end to the genocide in Palestine. We call on our city council members to stand with us in this long overdue endeavor to ensure that New York City becomes the largest city in the country to call for an immediate ceasefire.
That's right.
This press conference acts as the beginning of a 24-hour vigil. The vigil seeks to mourn and grieve as a city, the known names of the 30,000 Palestinians killed during this ongoing genocide. We are making the direct connection between the deaths and the culpability of U.S. and New York City tax dollars and funds sent to Israeli military funding. We do not accept the contention that this is simply a foreign policy issue. This genocide has a direct impact on our local communities. There are over 50,000 Palestinians in our communities right here in New York City. Every year, almost $120 million of New York City residents' federal tax dollars go to the U.S. government's military funding of Israel. That is funding that could go towards local needs instead. And our local leaders must speak out. Last year, a dozen city council members visited Israel, and just last week, over a half dozen did the same. Yet those same council members stay silent now, while the Israeli military, backed by the U.S., continues to perpetuate a genocide that has killed nearly 30,000 Palestinians. 13,000 of them are children. New York City plays a leadership role nationwide. We are home to the official headquarters of the United Nations, whose General Assembly has voted by large majority to adopt a resolution demanding a ceasefire. Many local elected officials have spoken out around the country through letters, statements, and in a growing number of cities by passing resolutions calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. These cities, at least 65 and counting, include Chicago, Detroit, San Francisco, Atlanta, Seattle, Oakland, and here in New York, both Albany and Newburgh City have joined the call. Should be the biggest and next city to make the unequivocal call for a ceasefire and stand on the right side of history.
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
History demands that we act now, and that we act together. New York City must be loud and clear. Cease fire now.
Yes.
Free, free, free Palestine!
Free, free, free Palestine!
And for our first speaker, I would like to introduce Sumaya Awood from the Adala Justice Project.
As we stand here today, Palestinians in Gaza are being indiscriminately bombed. They're being starved to death. They're dying of dehydration. Babies are dying because they don't have formula and medication. The most basic things to survive. And Israel, it is a war tactic to starve them to death, to bomb them to death. They are dying in the hundreds every single day. And make no mistake, our government is funding this death.
Shame.
Our government is openly and proudly supporting this war machine. No one is spared. No one is spared by Israel's bombs. Not doctors and medics, not NICU babies. No one is spared. Not journalists who are unable to report on what is happening because they are being killed off one by one after the other. They bomb the records with the names of Palestinians killed so that we can't read every name, so we can't remember every single life, every single future that Israel has taken from us. This would not be possible without the U.S. support. Our government has the power to put an end to this genocide, and instead it's choosing to actively support it on every level. Our federal government, our state government, and certainly our city government, which is why we're here today. Any representative who still refuses to call for a ceasefire, to call for an end to genocide, do you understand what that means? Do you understand that you are waist deep in Palestinian blood? Do you comprehend the fact that babies are being starved to death? Babies are being starved to death, and that is on you. That is on every single representative who still chooses to be silent. Do you understand that your silence is complicity in genocide? Genocide! It's a genocide. And that's on you. We've heard city council members say, well, what does this have to do with us here in New York? Isn't our purpose to focus on New Yorkers? What a shame that that's your response to being told, stop supporting a genocide. We are New Yorkers here. There are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers coming out every day, every week from the elementary school kids to the high schoolers, to the college students, to the workers, the immigrants, the new refugees in this city, and they're all saying, cease fire now, because it's a basic demand. It's the lowest demand. You shouldn't need phone calls and emails to remind you that you should oppose a genocide. You should oppose ethnic cleansing because it's ethnic cleansing. You shouldn't need a single phone call to your office to tell you to stand against mass murder.
That's right.
That's right.
What we do here today matters. What our city council does matters. It has reverberations across the country and frankly across the world. This is one of the wealthiest cities in the world, and every year our city, our state sends hundreds of thousands of dollars, subsidized tax dollars, to support the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. Our city council has a responsibility to speak out. It's not just a moral or ethical stance or obligation. It's a choice to do what's in the best interest of millions of New Yorkers, of working class New Yorkers, of immigrant New Yorkers, of refugee New Yorkers. Ceasefire is the bare minimum. What you say behind closed doors doesn't matter. You have to be loud and outspoken. You took public office to represent people. You took public office to assume the responsibility to speak out against injustice, not to be paid to be silent. If you can't utter the word ceasefire in the face of 30,000 Palestinians murdered, if you can't utter the word ceasefire in the face of NICU babies rotting in their beds because of Israel's war machine, then I ask you, where is your humanity? Has Israel robbed you of that too? Wake up! Wake up and look at the face of every single Palestinian murdered, of every single life and future that has been robbed by Israel's war machine. Look at them and let that penetrate your soul, because your continued silence, your continued complicity will haunt you. It will haunt you for the rest of your life. It's high time that people who purportedly represent us as New Yorkers take a stance against genocide. And that's why we're here, to say ceasefire now, and not temporary. Permanent ceasefire now.
Yeah! Give it up for Samaya! We want to call up next, and very thankful to call up our next speakers, Council Member Shahana Hanif, followed by Rita Joseph. They're also joined by Alexa Aviles, CEASEFIRE, Lincoln Wrestler, Tiffany Caban, Brianna Sanchez, Natasha Williams, and Crystal Hudson. Thanks to all of our council members. Come on in. Come on, we got space. Thank you to my colleagues. I can't tell if this is
Try again, check. No, it just went off.
Is this on? No. Here,
No.
yellow. Oh, okay, this is on now. Oh, yeah,
is
this is on now. It's a little spotty, but we're okay. So first, I just want to give a shout out to my colleagues who are here. Councilmember Tiffany Caban. Councilmember Lincoln Wrestler. Councilmember CEASEFIRE. Councilmember Crystal Hudson. Councilmember Rita Joseph. Councilmember Rita Sanchez. Councilmember Alexa Aviles. Councilmember Natasha Williams was also here. And we have all called for a permanent ceasefire. Some of my colleagues who have also called for a ceasefire are not here, but they will be joining later on for the vigil. Some of my colleagues who are standing here with me will also be speaking after me. First and foremost, I'm a constituent from Brooklyn.
Yes, Brooklyn's in the house.
And I am angry. And I am deeply ashamed of my reps, none of whom have called for a ceasefire. None of whom, from downstate to upstate, have called for a ceasefire. It is a damn shame. I can't be the only one to call for a ceasefire as the lone Muslim woman elected official. As the first Muslim woman elected to the city council. I repeat, as the first. I am alone in that building. And while I have my anti-war colleagues, it has been extremely isolating and lonely at this time to speak out loud against a genocide under our watch. We should not have to convince American politicians that there is a genocide.
That's right.
It should not be up to our constituents to call us and say, you must speak out against a genocide. And while it has been alone, I have been alone, I am proud to have been grounded by movement leaders, Muslim, Palestinian leaders on the ground, many of whom who are here, who've been a part of this fight since October 7th, organizing day in, day out, the same ones who are fighting for a stronger New York City, coming to our rallies for affordable housing, gender justice, immigrant equity, you name it, these are the same people. The same people fighting for a stronger, more representative democracy. So I won't be stifling how you lead us. We won't be stifling your tactics because there is a genocide. There are taxpayer monies going into funding the death, the murder of thousands of Palestinians every single day. As elected officials, we have the responsibility, the obligation to have the moral courage to call for what we know is right, a permanent ceasefire. A permanent ceasefire is what brings home all hostages.
Right.
All hostages.
Right.
We can and must do this now. Now what comes next? Because I know this is the largest gathering we've seen to date in front of City Hall, and I thank you for that. Ramadan's coming up. We gotta boycott the mayor's iftar.
Yes.
You're not gonna let my colleagues go to the mosques in our neighborhoods if they've not called for a permanent ceasefire. They are not allowed. They're not coming to our stadiums for Eid prayer if they've not called for a permanent ceasefire.
That's right.
They are not allowed. We are voters. We participate in this democracy. We are civic leaders. We saw what happened in Michigan last night. We've been told that every vote counts. We know what that means. So I hope that my colleagues will see that we exist, that we are grieving, that we have demands,
and that calling for a permanent ceasefire is the bare minimum. The bare minimum. Thank you all so much for being here, for standing for peace, for being against genocide, for being pro-peace. And now I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Councilmember Ressler.
Let's give it up for Shahana Hanif. Over 30,000, nearly, approximately, something like 30,000 people, civilians, have been killed by the brutality of the Israeli government. Indiscriminate violence has upended and destroyed life in Gaza for millions of people. It's been nearly 5 months since the horrible attacks by Hamas. And we do, of course, need to make sure that every single hostage is brought home safely. But there is no possible rationale for the ongoing, indiscriminate, horrific violence against the people of Gaza.
That's right.
It must stop.
That's right. Yeah.
It is absolutely shameful. And let's be honest, we know this Israeli government. We knew immediately how they would respond.
Correct.
The viciousness, the brutality that they have caused in response to the horrible attacks by Hamas has been to a scale that is absolutely indefensible. I am a Jewish person, and I have heard from literally thousands of constituents about what is happening in the Middle East.
Genocide. It's genocide.
And I will tell you, I'm a local neighborhood politician who spends most of my time worrying about the trash getting picked up and holding the police accountable and making sure our schools are well funded. I'm not an expert in international affairs. But it doesn't take an expert to understand that tens of thousands of civilians are being killed, and it is wrong. And we must demand that our government do everything in its power to stop it. And so I want to thank each and every one of you for being out here today, for organizing, for not stopping, for continuing to put the pressure on all of the places it needs to go. And this city council needs to stand up. Our members of Congress damn well need to stand up. Our members of the U.S. Senate need to make their voices heard. We have an enormous amount of power in New York City and New York State. We need our leaders to reflect the demands of our communities. And that is what you all represent here today, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Councilmember Rita Joseph.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Councilmember Rita Joseph, representing the 40th Council District. I'm a mom of 4 boys, and when I watch those videos of 12,000 children, and I taught for 2 decades, and children of all backgrounds. So this breaks my heart today to see the ongoing genocide of people in Gaza. I'm calling on all of my colleagues, state, federal, city, to call for an immediate ceasefire. Not half, not all, but immediate ceasefire to stop bombing Gaza. Let's find a better way. Bring home the hostages, yes, I agree. However, we cannot continue to erase generations of young people, generations of mothers, generations of fathers. It cannot go on. So today I'm standing as an education chair alone and calling on all to do the right thing. No more. We said no more war, and I'm losing. But we cannot lose. I have hope that we will have a resolution and we will save the people of Gaza. So I'm calling again loud and clear from the mighty borough of Brooklyn, a ceasefire immediately. Thank you. Councilmember Alexis Avila.
From Borinquen to New York City to Sunset Park, our people have called for a permanent and immediate ceasefire, almost immediately, to when this started. I ask my colleagues who reflexively support this government's policy of providing giant sums, billions of dollars in specifically military aid. We are not talking about our government investing in civic society, civil society. Our dollars are explicitly for the use of bombs. What have we gained from that investment? And I'm going to tell you what our taxpayers, and you have heard it already, what our dollars are funding. We have over 30,000 Palestinians that have died, 12,000 children. As a mother, you have seen the photographs of dust-filled children clad in blood, shaking from the shock and the horror that they are experiencing with our taxpayer dollar. This is an abomination. Yes. I ask everyone to find your humanity, to look at those children and say, not on our dime, not in our time. I don't care where the kids come from. They are children.
That's right.
What are we doing? We have raised communities that have lived in for generations. Our taxpayer dollars have turned communities into dust. We have blown up hospitals, educational buildings, everything. For what? This is not a trick question. We should not be confused. And if you are confused, you have bigger issues to handle. So I implore all of my colleagues, up and down, city, federal, state, on my block, to stand with permanent ceasefire, to let everyone know that until the hostages are free, until Palestine is free, we will not be free. So in the name of Borinquen and all my people, we stand with you. We stand for peace. And we want permanent ceasefire. Violence begets violence. Let's dig into our humanity and do what is right, not on our dime. Thank you.
Wow. I just want to again just thank our council members for joining us. And that was Councilmember Hanif, Alexa Aviles, Chio Say, Sandy Nurse, Lincoln Wrestler. Am I missing anybody?
Rita Joseph.
Fiorina.
And next I would like to actually bring up Councilmember Tiffany Caban.
Hey y'all. My name is Tiffany Caban. I am council member in the 22nd District in Queens. Queens showing up hard in the face of a genocide. I think about the fact that before I became a council member, I was a public defender for almost a decade. And so I will be one of the first people to admit that I am not an expert in the situation in Gaza. And so my message is for folks who have felt the same way that I have, because when I have that creeping thought, I'm reminded again and again and again of the words of Angela Davis, who said, "You do not have to be an expert. People will tell you that you don't know enough, but you do not have to be an expert to be in solidarity with a liberation struggle."
That's right. That's right.
We know what is wrong, we know what is righteous, and we value humanity, period. And so here's what I do know from my life and my experiences and my career, and it's that the safety that we all deserve does not come from systems of punishment and control. They come from systems of care and compassion.